Hello and welcome to this class number 7 of Decoding PSIR through Answer Writing series. I welcome all of you who have taken PSIR as your optional subject in the UPSC examination or those who are planning to take PSIR as your optional subject. The reason why I am here and we have launched this series is to try and make it easier for you to handle PSIR. In every single of these videos, we take a previous year question. First, discuss the topic that has been asked in that question in detail and then see what do you have to write in these kind of questions. The reason why we do this is a lot of theory based questions in PSIR get repeatedly asked year after year. Most of the questions that we have discussed have been asked multiple times in the past. And here also today also we are taking a question that has been asked in the past. The reason of this series is to make sure that you get comfortable with PSIR, to make you understand what kind of questions are being asked and how can you prepare better for PSIR. This series has 3 videos in a week, Monday, Wednesday and Fridays at 4 p.m. So please do make sure that you subscribe to this channel and come back on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays for this class. In order to get a PDF of this lecture, you can join the Telegram channel. I'm giving the link in the description of the video. Join the channel. I upload all the PDFs of these classes there and you can watch it there as well. On that note, let's see what is the previous year question that we are taking up for today. So there was a question in 2019, paper 1 part A, 10 mark question, 150 words. The question is, write a short note on pluralistic theory of the state. If you have watched the previous classes, you would have seen we have discussed multiple theories of state so far. We have also discussed multiple approaches so far. We have discussed a post-behavioral approach, the systems approach, we discussed about post-colonial theories, so on and so forth. Today again, we are taking up another theory of the state called pluralistic theory of state. What exactly is this? This is very easy to understand. One of those topics in political science that you wish should be asked every year because it is easy to understand. Now, what exactly do you mean by this? What is plural? Plural means more than one. And this is the basis of entire theory. Basically, there are some thinkers, political thinkers in the past, most famous of them being Harold Lasky, who are of the view that in any government, in any society, government is not the only one that has all the powers. So let's assume a country such as India. And if I ask you, in India, who is running the country? Who exactly is the one that has the power to run the country? Most probably people will say the government. Most people assume that the government runs the country and the government is the center of power. Now this is not false. The government obviously is the center of power. They are the ones who run the country. However, many people, those who belong to a pluralist thought, believe that the state has multiple centers of power. They believe that the government is not the only one that is running the country. A country is run by multiple institutions. I'll give you an example. Government is one of them. Then, for example, there are religious institutions, especially in those countries where religion plays a very important role. In those countries, religious institutions, head of the religious institutions, they play a very important role. For example, if you look at the British Parliament, in British Parliament, in their upper house, they have seats reserved for representatives of the church also. So it's a country where religious institutions have been given a place. Look at many of the other countries. Look at, for example, Pakistan. Countries where religion plays a very important role, where government does not have all the powers in their hand. Then let me give you one more example. Media. In a lot of countries, even in democratic countries, media is extremely powerful, extremely important. They are the ones who can reach out to crores of people every single day. And if they want to form a perception in the mind of the people, they can. If they want to form a perception that the government is doing a bad job, they can do that. If they want to form a perception the government is doing a good job, they can do that as well. So basically, government alone is not the center of power. Then there are other examples, let's say businesses. In capitalist countries specifically, we have businesses that are extremely powerful. Tech companies that have so much power, so much influence, they also influence the country, influence the state, how the state will be run. This is what pluralistic theory of state is. That in any democratic country, you cannot expect the government alone to have the powers. There are plural centers of power and not just one centers of power. These centers of power or these institutions, apart from the government, that play a very important role in running of the country, they are together called as a civil society. Civil society is a term that you would be familiar with. You keep on hearing about this in Indian polity, in our newspapers, news, etc. You keep on hearing that the government should consult the civil society should help the government, civil society does this and that. So the phrase civil society actually is this. These institutions, apart from the government that hold the power, they are called as a civil society. Now this happens in democratic states only. If it's not a democratic state, then obviously there is only one center of power, the military or the dictator or whatever. These pluralistic centers of power or more than one centers of power can only exist in a democratic country. So please do remember that. For example, in North Korea, you can't say it's a pluralist theory or it's a pluralist state. In North Korea, there's only one single person who has all the powers. In Saudi Arabia, you can't say that it's a pluralist state because there's only one royal family that has all the powers. So mostly it's about the democratic countries where this pluralist state is seen. This theory came up in 1960s, 70s, but we saw live examples of it in 1980s. For example, in Poland in 1980, there was a rise of a group called Solidarity. Solidarity was the union of the workers. Now, Poland's history is extremely interesting. We will not go into that. Poland was one of those countries that was under heavy influence of USSR. It was not a part of USSR, it was a separate country, but after the Second World War, Eastern Europe was under influence of USSR. Poland was one of those countries that was under influence of USSR. So it had a lot of influence of communism, and thus the workers were given a lot of importance. The workers had a lot of unions coming together. They were held by USSR also. So the workers, independent workers, basically formed a union called Solidarity. Then similarly in Europe, other groups emerged, environmental groups, other associations. Today, for example, you have a lot of associations that come under category of pressure groups. All these are again examples of pluralist theory of power, where the chosen government is not the only center of power. They don't control everything. There are other centers of power as well, and I did not include many educational institutions. In many countries, educational institutions are very powerful. They are the ones who have a lot of following. The youth, which are members of these educational institutions, they can also act as centers of power. Some of the thinkers which famously supported and gave this theory include Harold J. Lasky and Robert M. McIver. Both of these specifically were supporters of the civil society. They were supporters of these social groups being considered as different centers of power. This is something that has to be quoted. As I told you earlier as well, whenever you are writing questions in PSI or in any optional, in the answers you have to be very careful to include important keywords. When the examiner is checking your answer, he or she is expecting certain keywords to be written. When you are writing an answer on pluralist theory, the examiner expects you that somewhere you should have mentioned the name of Harold Lasky. Somewhere you should have mentioned the name of McIver. Somewhere you should have mentioned civil society. Somewhere you should have mentioned the idea of shared sovereignty. All these are important keywords related to this concept. So whenever you are writing answers on these concepts, on these theories, every theory, every concept has certain important keywords related to it, attached to it, and you are expected to write those, mention those somewhere in the answer. Only then you can expect to fetch good marks. This is the pluralist theory of state. So this is what you had to know. All these centers of power can bargain with the government. You can call them as pressure groups. They can ask the government or they can push the government towards making a favorable policy that they also like. So this is what you needed to know about pluralist theory of state. Now let's see if we can write this answer. So again, the question was short note, just in 150 words, write a short note on the pluralist theory. Usually when you have to write this short note kind of answer, the difficulty is how to compress all that information in 150 words. Because you would have more than 150 words to write, but the word limit is also important. So you have to compress it and make sure you include your keywords and get the idea. So this is how we'll write. That the state can be defined as legal political entity that has sovereignty over the people. However, who controls this sovereignty is a matter of debate. Pluralists believe that state is not the only sovereign entity. There are other institutions that form the civil society that have sovereignty over the state. And again, which are these institutions? You can give examples: businesses, media houses, religious institutions, so on and so forth. And then we'll include words of people who are related to it. For example, in words of Lasky, it has become an impossible misadventure to locate the sovereign in a modern state. Means Lasky has said that in a modern state like today, you cannot identify which one is a sovereign body because there are multiple sovereign bodies in the state. Then you can talk about pluralism and give some contrasting views as well. For example, contrasting views were given by Hobbes, who believed in monist theory. Monist is just the opposite of pluralist. When pluralists believe that there should be multiple centers of power, monists believe that there should be one single center of power. There should be one single center of power who believe that there cannot be more than one sovereign because that is the entire definition of sovereign. So you can mention that also. That on one hand there are the pluralist thinkers, on the other hand there are the monist thinkers. You can write about how Lasky and McIver had different views, slightly different views. Lasky regards the state as a keystone, means the most important center of power, and the others will revolve around it. McIver thinks that it is a child of law and not above the people who created it. Means for McIver, government is as powerful as the other institutions. For Harold Lasky, government is more powerful, but there are other centers of power as well. This is what you have to write as a short note. Again, you have to compress it within 150 words to complete your answer. I hope this was helpful. I hope there is one more concept that is clear in your mind. I'll see you in the next one on Wednesday. Do hit the subscribe button if you have not done so far. If other friends of yours have taken PSIR as the optional, please invite them here for practice and to start their preparation in a structured manner. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye. Jai Hind.